We have groundbreaking news regarding the ongoing efforts to eliminate suppressors and short-barreled rifles from the National Firearms Act nationwide. 15 states have just joined forces in support of ending the remaining NFA restrictions, and they're pushing to eliminate these restrictions immediately. Hit that subscribe button right now because what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you understand the current battle over NFA restrictions. Let me break down exactly what's happening in this critical lawsuit. We need to discuss what's currently unfolding in response to the $0 tax that recently passed in H.R. 1, commonly known as the Big Beautiful Bill. For those who have been following these developments, you know that H.R. 1 successfully passed. However, we only achieved a reduction of the NFA tax rather than complete elimination of these restrictions. Under this new law, which takes effect on January 1st, the NFA tax will be reduced from $200 to $0. Unfortunately, certain members of Congress were unwilling to push for the complete version of the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act that we wanted included. They also refused to remove the Senate parliamentarian who was responsible for striking out the full version of the language we originally sought. While this was disappointing, we knew there would be responses to this partial victory. Recently, we've witnessed how Democrats like Senator Chris Murphy introduced a proposed amendment to the military spending bill, which would dramatically increase the NFA tax requirement from $200 to $4,795 per stamp. This represents a clear response from Democrats to the NFA's $0 tax change that resulted from the Big Beautiful Bill. Their goal is obvious: make these items financially inaccessible to law-abiding citizens. Multiple Second Amendment organizations, along with numerous states, have launched lawsuits and challenges to remove suppressors and SBRs from the NFA entirely. They're strategically using the $0 tax change as the foundation for these lawsuits to eliminate their remaining NFA restrictions. Gun Owners of America, the Firearms Regulatory Accountability Coalition, Silencer Shop, Palmetto State Armory, and Silencer Co. have filed a joint lawsuit against the ATF using the $0 tax change as their primary argument. Now, 15 states have joined as named plaintiffs in support of this lawsuit against the ATF. The states supporting this legal challenge are Texas, Alaska, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Montana, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Utah, West Virginia, and Wyoming. This coalition of Second Amendment organizations and states is now moving to end the lawsuit and eliminate their remaining NFA restrictions immediately. The parties are filing a summary judgment motion in this lawsuit, aiming to strike down all remaining NFA restrictions. These restrictions still include the requirement to obtain a tax stamp, even though it's $0, register the item with the ATF, and notify them when transporting these items across state lines. In this lawsuit filed by Silencer Shop and these organizations alongside the states, they argue that the National Firearms Act, enacted in 1934, was premised on Congress's taxing powers. The act originally imposed a $200 tax on the manufacture and transfer of particular classes of firearms. The NFA's authors clearly intended this as an exercise of the taxing power, and the Supreme Court upheld it on that basis. This has been the uncontroversial understanding of courts and legal commentators for nearly half a century. However, the NFA no longer imposes any tax on the vast majority of firearms it purports to regulate, thanks to the $0 tax change in the Big Beautiful Bill. This means the constitutional foundation on which the NFA rested has dissolved, and the NFA cannot be upheld under any other Article 1 power. With respect to the now untaxed firearms, the act is unconstitutional. In summary, Gun Owners of America, the participating states and other plaintiffs are asking the court to declare that the NFA's registration and transfer requirements pertaining to the now untaxed firearms exceed Congress's enumerated powers. They're also requesting that the courts enjoin all ATF employees, agents, and other federal government agencies and employees from implementing or enforcing the NFA against suppressors and these other now untaxed firearms. Timeline and court proceedings. Both sides have asked the court to put the initial trial filings and responses on hold so they can file cross motions for summary judgment. Essentially, both sides are asking to end this dispute as quickly as possible without going to a full trial. The court recently granted that request, ordering a specific timeline. Before this court is the parties' joint motion to enter a briefing schedule and hold the defendant's deadline to file a response to the complaint in abeyance. The court grants the motion. The timeline is as follows. Plaintiffs will file their motion for summary judgment on or before October 7, 2025. Defendants will file their combined opposition to plaintiff's motion and cross-motion for summary judgment on or before November 6, 2025. For this significant $0 tax lawsuit, both sides are moving to resolve the case sooner rather than later. The plaintiffs believe that the NFA's remaining restrictions should be struck down by default. They argue there is no Second Amendment basis for this type of restriction, that it fails Second Amendment analysis, and that it should collapse because of Congress's taxing powers. Since there is a $0 tax on these items, it fails those Article 1 requirements and should be struck down entirely. One important caveat is that we don't know how the Trump ATF will respond to this specific challenge. They could respond in a way that leads to a fast resolution, which seems likely given their proceeding with cross motions for summary judgment, but we don't know exactly how they'll argue in that motion. We've seen the Trump DOJ and the Second Amendment Task Force take pro-Second Amendment stances in various cases, but it's been somewhat inconsistent based on the specific cases. When it comes to the NFA and the Gun Control Act, the ATF and DOJ under the Trump administration have maintained a stance to defend the constitutionality of those laws, claiming they're still valid despite potential Second Amendment violation issues. For example, in the suppressor challenge in the Fifth Circuit, the Peterson case, the Trump DOJ stated that suppressors are protected arms, but that the NFA's restrictions are constitutional because it operates as a shall-issue permit system, making it valid under the Supreme Court's precedent in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. There are many moving parts in the NFA battle right now. Multiple lawsuits have been launched. Democrats are introducing bills and amendments to increase the NFA tax, and Representative Clyde has introduced another bill and amendment to remove the remaining NFA restrictions entirely. Currently, there are cases in district courts and courts of appeals, with 2 cases currently before the Supreme Court seeking review of short-barreled rifle issues. It will be fascinating to see how both sides argue this issue in their summary judgment motions. What we're really focusing on is how the Trump ATF will respond in their motion for summary judgment. What position will they take? Will they argue the NFA is still valid? Will they claim this doesn't violate the Second Amendment and is still some form of valid tax? The approach they take will be crucial. This is what's currently happening in response to the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act not being fully passed in the Big Beautiful Bill. This is the direct result of the new $0 tax on NFA items. As we receive more information and developments occur, I'll keep you updated on all the latest news. If you found this video informative and want to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to subscribe. Your subscription helps the channel grow and allows us to continue bringing you the latest Second Amendment news and legal developments. Thank you for all of your continued support.